very famous wheel. Okay, so what Alan is trying to do, is the creator of this wheel, is that he gathers the learning domains. So we can have cognitive learning domain, we can have psychomotor learning domain, we can have affective learning domain. However, this wheel is about cognitive learning domain only. So you see here, cognitive learning domains means that, you know, they uses Bloom taxonomy, cognitive domain, and then they try to appropriate this one. For example, if you want your students to create something, your learning goals is for them at the end of the lesson to create A, B, C, D, E, anything. So what they were trying to suggest is that what are the suitable tools that is suitable for the activity to create, to achieve the learning objective of creating. If you want your students to, at the end of the lesson, to apply something, at the end of the lesson, the students should be able to apply the Python something in their problem solving processes. So if you want to make it even more engaging, so these are the example of technological tools that you can use fitting to your cognitive learning domain. This is just a suggestion. There are many more, I'm sure. And this is just, they fit this one just to cognitive learning domain. You can have psychomotor learning domain as well as affective learning domain. This is what they're trying to do. Okay, if you, like for example, Dr. Tazli was sharing with us just now, he wants his student to create something. Okay, so if your learning objective at the end of the day is for the students to produce a presentation that explains the thermodynamics principle, so you want them to create, then the technological tool that can make your creation or the production of students learning, then you can use, for example, Canva. So try to have your learning goals first in mind. Then you design your activities, you design your assessment, and then to make it even more engaging, you add the technological tools. What I wanted to try to summarize from the two of our previous presenters is that they both explain that, but what you need to do now is just you put that in place by making alignment. Now, once we have made our alignment, now we want to monitor our engagement. So we were saying that, you know, I asked my students to do this, and then I asked my students to do that. How do I monitor? There are many tools, but I would highly suggest to all of you to make full use of this tool. It is called learningdesigner.org. It is a website where you can put your plans in place. Okay, it's just like a website for you to, you know, to jot down your plans for your teaching and learning for that day. However, it comes with the tools that can illustrate how many % of your activities involve active engagement from your students, or how many % of your planning of your activities for that day is about students having to listen and having to read, which is maybe passive activity. So this is a very nice website. It is developed by UCL, okay, University College London. So it is for free. So you can create your design, your lesson plan here, and then it will give an illustration of how many % you have spent of the time you have spent for a specific activity. I will show you later on. So you can write here, for example, you can have, for example, if your first learning goal is that you want your students to be able to identify the difference between logical and arithmetic operators and their function, maybe to achieve this activity, this goal, and then you want your students to read, watch, and listen. And then you can set whether they have to do this individually, or is it with or without teachers present, and whether they have to have internet access for this activity to happen, and whether it is synchronous or asynchronous. You can also, so you can add all your learning activity type here. And if you have another learning goal for that day, let's say after they have identified the difference between logical and arithmetic operators, now you want them to solve two hypothetical problems related to the use of logical and arithmetic operators, for example. And then your activity is that you want your students to discuss this problem in groups. So now your activity from the drop-down list, you can decide the activity is discuss. And then whether that has to be in group, and if the teacher is present, you can click here. There's a tick here. This one is a cross, meaning to say this one, for this activity, the teacher is not present. Here, this activity, the teacher is present. And it has to be online. And here, whether it is synchronous or asynchronous. So you can write. And then after discussing for this activity, you want your student to produce something. So you want them to produce a solution to the problem in the form of Canva, for example, in the form of Canva presentation, then you can also write here. Now, if you see here, this is the time that you ask your students to spend. 10 minutes for discussing, for example, 10 minutes for producing, 5 minutes for reading, watching, or listening, 5 minutes for reading, watching, or listening. So this website will summarize the time, the proportion of time that the students have to spend in reading, watching, and listening, in discussing, and in producing. So it will give you a pie chart here. So here, for example, a lot of time is spent on acquisition of knowledge. So these, I would say, not dark blue lah. The dark blue is for discussion. So this one, light blue, the light blue pie chart is about reading, watching, and listening. So you know that, if you see my pie chart, most of the time, my student is going to acquire knowledge by listening, watching, or reading. And how many % of your activity that you have designed requires your students to be actively engaged in discussion? And how many % of your activity where the students have to spend on practicing something? And how many % of the activity that you ask your students to do is spent on producing something? So they will produce a pie chart from the plan that you have created. They will also detail out the minutes that they have to spend and the percentages here. So you'll be able to see. Okay, most of the time, is your class is too engaging, or is it too passive? It is not engaging at all. If it is too passive, then you might have the big portion of your lesson is about reading, watching, and listening. But if you have some part of it is about collaborating, practicing, discussing, investigating, or producing something, then you know that there is a portion of engagement in your lesson. And when before we move on to this one, I think I would like to show you the website here. You can just sign up. Okay, it is on learningdesigner.org. So you can just fill in, okay, what is the name of your topic, how many hours for this session, this whole session, mode of delivery, whether it is wholly online, blended, classroom-based, or location-based. So it is not necessarily has to be entirely face-to-face or online. So you can do this also if you have your class conducted face-to-face. What is the aim and what is your learning objective for this lesson? Size of your class and a little bit of description each one. I put here, students in my class is sports science students, because my students from sports science students and students from language background, they have very different characteristics. So I just need to describe that this class is the design for my sport science students. Okay, sometimes you have many different personalities for different students. So then you put in your objective here, and then you can select here. You want the students to read, watch, or listen, collaborate, discuss, investigate, practice, or produce. And then of course, you can add your learning type here. If you think that for them to be able to differentiate between logical and arithmetic operators, you want them to read, watch, and listen, and you want them to discuss something as well. So you can add here. Now the color will change. So this color will be reflected in your pie chart later on. Then you can determine how many minutes you want them to discuss, the size of the students, is it 5 students per group, and whether the teacher is around. There should be a screen tip here, but it's not, somehow not showing. Here, whether this is online or not. So if you see here, the very small screen tip. Here, whether it is asynchronous, or if you click here, it becomes synchronous. If you unclick that one, it becomes asynchronous. If you want to accompany that with the resources, and then you might want to add your resources. So you add that one, and then I'll make it a bit smaller. So you can always have assessment, then I have an assessment part here, and I can also add another table here at the right hand side. I can save this one, and I can import this one to Microsoft Word, and then it will illustrate to me the percentages here. So you can adjust accordingly to make sure your teaching and learning session is somehow engaging, or is it too much that you are asking your students to do so many things that they are too busy and doing things that somehow maybe you are not sure whether they acquire teaching and learning session. Okay. Then this is for you to plan the engagement level that you want to give. Once you have given that out, then you might want to monitor that one. So here I think for every learning management system at our respective university, we have our own learning management system where we can look at the analytics of our students' engagement. Try to pay attention to these prompts or to these alerts. For example, at my university, at University Teknologi Malaysia, we have it's not entirely a dashboard. It is not in the form of dashboard yet, but they will give you prompt if you have students at risk. Now, and then they will tell you in which section, and then they will point out which student is having problem. And you will be able to also see, okay, try to look at how our students are engaging. We gave them a lot of activities. We gave them, for example, because sometimes we don't do our activity live. Okay, we have our asynchronous activity. So how do we monitor and make sure our students are participating while we are not entirely online with them all the time? So you can monitor their learning analytics. Look at their level of engagement here. For example, how many times do they post? How many, or if they did not post, participate by posting something, but maybe they view something. This also means something. So we have many types of learners. Okay, sometimes our learners are they are not the type that who like to talk aloud among their friends, but behind the scene they are doing all kinds of work. Okay, so we can monitor that one. Track their progress. If you give them some activity, try to see who is not participating and try to observe who is doing what. If you give them quiz, have they attempted the quiz? Have they at least submitted the quiz or at least view the quiz? Okay, try to make it a habit that you monitor their progress. Although you did not monitor, because this one can maybe didn't happen entirely live during real time, try to monitor this in the system, track their progress, monitor their engagement. And finally, ask ourselves, when we want to engage our students, try to identify how does their engagement relate to their learning performance. You can investigate on this one. How does their engagement relate to their learning satisfaction? Because we saw just now, the students can be engaged but they are not satisfied with their learning, and how engagement can be improved. And the important thing is that how to balance engagement. And my take-home messages, I think it summarizes both Prof. Karim as well as Dr. Tazli's presentation. Your online learning engagement has to be systematically designed for balance, and monitoring engagement balance can be done using log reports and learning analytics dashboard. Always make sure we gave them things and then we monitor back what we have given. I think that's all from me, Dr. Azlina. Thank you very much.